materials. If you have any questions or comments, please email me or leave a comment below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, keep working hard, keep studying hard, and let's get to our questions. Question 1. Jolene is competing in a chess tournament where she is given only 5 minutes to play each game. Jolene believes she plays too slow and wants to speed up her moves. What dimension of her moves will be most appropriate for Jolene to target? Okay, so on the surface, it looks like a pretty easy measurement question. When we're targeting behaviors for increase or decrease, we need to pick a dimension to alter, right? So we want to speed up something. We want something to happen more often. What are we looking at here, right? So Jolene wants to play faster, right? She plays too slow. She has 5 minutes. She needs to play more moves quicker, okay? And that's an important distinction because we're dealing with some sort of time right here, okay? Not so much how many moves she plays, it's the speed of her moves, okay? So what dimension do we need to target? A, frequency. Would frequency be relevant here? Well, at first glance, frequency seems okay, right? Because frequency is to count the number of moves, right? So if we increase the number of moves Jolene plays, right, theoretically, we'd be speeding up her moves, okay? So frequency is okay, right? But is it our best answer? Remember, we want to speed up the moves. It's not about the number of moves, okay? So what about IRT? Why is IRT better? Well, IRT is the time in between two responses, right? So she plays one move, and then she plays her second move. The time in between move 1 and move 2 is the IRT. If we can decrease the time in between the moves, we can speed up Jolene, okay? And that's why IRT is better than frequency here, okay? IRT is dealing more with this speed and time component. Frequency is more about the count and how many, okay? Difficult question, difficult first question, okay? But that's an important distinction to remember between frequency and IRT. Frequency is okay, but they want the best answer. The better answer is inter-response time. Duration, of course, is not relevant here because we're not timing how long it takes her to play one move, right? We're talking about separate moves, okay, and the time in between those two moves. And then play check is a sort of discontinuous measurement for a group of individuals, okay? Not what we're looking at here. We want to increase Jolene's speed, meaning we need to decrease the time in between her moves. So we're going to target IRT for Jolene's moves. Gregory just started working as a cashier at a supermarket. Gregory has poor memory, so his friend recommended Gregory write out a checklist of things he needed to do each day. Before each shift, Gregory tapes that checklist to a station and uses it as a reminder to complete certain tasks. The items on the checklist are what? Okay, so Gregory was having trouble remembering things at the store. Gregory's friend said, write them down, tape them to your cashier station. It'll help you remember things. What is happening here? What are these items on the checklist? What are they functioning as? Okay, are they reinforcers? Well, it doesn't appear to be any sort of reinforcing, okay? They appear to be antecedents, right? Antecedents to Gregory engaging in the behavior, so we can rule out reinforcers. Are they prompts? They could be prompts, right? They are functioning as sort of SDs for Gregory engaging in these activities, okay, that he needs to remember to do. So to me, they look like prompts, right? The prompt functions as a temporary SD, right, for evoking a desired response. That's what Gregory's doing here. He writes out his items on a checklist. They function as the prompt to do these activities, okay? So prompt looks like our best answer. Read every answer choice, okay? Even if you identify the answer early, read all the answer choices. Task analysis. Is Gregory breaking down any task into multiple steps? No, right? We don't have any task analysis going on here. And then maintainers. Maintainers isn't actually a term, right? We have maintenance, but we're not putting anything on maintenance here, right? We are simply trying to evoke a desired behavior through the use of temporary SDs. Therefore, these items on the checklist are functioning as prompts for Gregory's behavior at the supermarket, okay? Remember, identify, is it an antecedent? Is it a consequence? Okay. And then when you're going through your answer choices, especially when you're studying, find the right answer and then understand why the wrong answers are wrong. If you can figure out why the wrong answers are wrong, okay, your proficiency at the exam will increase. I promise, okay? So take your time when you're studying and practicing to break down each answer choice and figure out why the right answer is right and why the wrong answers are wrong. Your BCBA tells you to take data on how often your client independently requests to use the bathroom. You record 0 instances on day 1. On day 2, your client asks 2 times. On day 3, they ask 4 times. And on day 4, your client asks 5 times. How would you describe the trend? All right, so this is a graphing question without a graph, okay? Remember, for our graphing questions, we need to know things like the x-axis, the y-axis, trend, variability, level, okay? This question is asking about the trend. What is the trend? Well, the trend is simply what path are our data points following, okay? Are they going up? Are they increasing? Are they going down? Are they decreasing? Are they flat? Are they stable? Is there no trend? Okay. What type of trend are we looking at here? Well, try to graph this in your head or get a piece of paper. Okay. Day 1, you have 0 instances. Day 2, 2 times, increase. Day 3, 4 times, increase. Day 4, 5 times, increase. So if we graphed it right, that data path would be going upwards. How would you describe that trend? Well, of course, it would be increasing, right? Decreasing if we reversed it, right? And on day 1, we had 5, day 2, we had 4, day 3, we had 2, that would be decreasing, right? If we had 3 instances every day, there would be no trend, okay? So trend, very simple. Simply what way is that data path going? Going up is increasing, down, decreasing, flat, no trend. This question, how would you describe a trend? Increasing. They give you pencil and paper for your exam. Take advantage of it. If you need to write these things out, if you need to find an average question, right? If you need to find a rate question, if you need to find a graphing question, right? Take your time and write these things out, okay? Don't, this is why you need to get to the point where you're doing the easy questions on the exam pretty quickly. So when you get to a more difficult question, maybe you have to write something out, you have time to do it, okay? So in this question, our trend is increasing. Bobby has a crush on Susie. Every Thursday, Susie stays inside during outside activities to work independently on a project. Each Thursday, Bobby will misbehave in class and lose outside privileges. However, he gets to stay inside with Susie. Losing outside privileges functions as what in regards to Bobby misbehaving? Okay, positive reinforcement, positive punishment question, reinforcement question, punishment question. Where do we start? Remember, where do we start? First, identify our target behavior, okay? And is that behavior increasing or decreasing, right? Well, let's look. What is our behavior, right? We're looking at Bobby misbehaving, okay? That's our target behavior. Is Bobby misbehaving increasing or is it decreasing? Or is it maintaining, right? Well, each Thursday, Bobby misbehaves in class, okay? So this is ongoing, right? So apparently, whatever the consequence is reinforcing Bobby's misbehaving, right? So what's the consequence? He gets to stay, well, the consequence is he loses outside privileges for misbehaving. So our behavior is misbehaving. The consequence is the removal of outside privileges, okay? However, Bobby continues to misbehave. So losing outside privileges is reinforcing. Remember, if our behavior increases or maintains, it's reinforcement. If our behavior decreases, it's punishment. We know we're looking at reinforcement. Now let's ask ourselves, positive or negative? Are we adding something or are we taking something away? Well, we're taking away outside privileges. Therefore, this is negative. Behavior is maintaining, reinforcement. So losing outside privileges functions as negative reinforcement in regards to Bobby misbehaving. Remember, in behavior analysis, it's not about what the punishment looks like or the consequence looks like, I should say. It's about the the effect it has on behavior. Okay, it doesn't matter what it is. It seems like losing outside privileges would be a punishment. For the Bobby, it's a reward because he gets to stay outside and hang out with Susie. Okay, you have to look at the behavior and you have to figure out, did that behavior increase? Did it decrease? That's how you figure out if it's reinforcement or if it's punishment. Okay, it's very important that you understand that. Okay, and that you practice these positive and negative questions, these reinforcement punishment questions, so you drill that into your brain. It's all about the effect the consequence has on the behavior. Okay, so again, our target behavior is misbehaving. Okay, our consequence is losing outside privileges. Losing outside privileges taken away is negative. Maintains or increases Bobby's misbehaving, it's reinforcement. So losing outside privileges functions as negative reinforcement in regards to Bobby misbehaving. These questions become very easy the more you do them. Okay, it just takes practice. All right, a behavior plan includes the target behavior, the measurement procedure, a reinforcement and extinction plan, the antecedents to the behavior, a crisis plan, and a mastery criteria. What is the behavior plan missing? All right, so kind of an abstract question here, right? Because this is just kind of a example behavior plan, and there's a key component missing, okay? So don't overthink it here. Think about what's the most important thing to identify if we want to target a behavior for decrease, right? You have your BIP, your behavior intervention plan. We need to decrease a behavior. What do we need to know first? Okay. We need to know, why is the behavior occurring? It's the most important thing, right? This behavior plan, we have the target behavior, so we know what we're targeting. We know how we're measuring it. We know how we are responding to it, right? And we have a replacement behavior. We know what the antecedent is. We know what happens in an emergency, and we know what happens, or we know what our goal is. But we're missing, why is this behavior happening, right? What's the function? Without the function, we can't design a behavior plan. First thing for any behavior, okay, is the function. As an RBT, when you're working as an RBT and you spot a new behavior, before you do anything else, anything at all, you need to identify a function, okay? So our behavior plan does not include the function. It's crucial. That is what we're missing. The behavior plan is different from the skill acquisition plan. So a behavior plan does not need to include the skill acquisition plan. We need our function, of course. Read all your answer choices. A punishment procedure. Not every behavior plan needs a punishment procedure, right? Punishment procedures are last resorts, okay? They're for specific situations. So you don't necessarily need a punishment in a behavior plan. And then nothing, the plan looks good. No, we were missing why that behavior is occurring. The most important piece, okay? So our behavior plan is missing the function. RBTs must renew their certifications. How often? So on the exam, you need to know about supervision, right? You need 5% supervision every month. You need to know about renewing your certifications. You must renew them how often? Monthly, yearly, every other year, every 5 years. You need to renew them annually, AKA yearly, okay? That involves getting your supervision hours. That involves redoing your competency exam, okay? Whatever company you work for will redo your competency, right? And you'll have to submit the documents to the board and they'll give you your new certification, okay? This kind of administrative stuff, you just kind of have to know, right? It's not complicated. Again, 5% monthly supervision, okay? Renew yearly, take your competency assessment yearly, okay? So when your annual competency comes up, be sure to come back and check out my competency video, okay? But, excuse me, the administrative stuff, you just kind of have to know. RBTs must renew their certifications yearly. Okay, Patrice is studying in the library. The person sitting next to him is playing their music loud enough for everyone to hear. Patrice leans over and says, "Can you turn your music down?" What type of verbal behavior does this represent? Okay, so RBTs, this isn't technically on the task list, right? You don't technically need to be familiar with the ins and outs of verbal operants and verbal behaviors, but I think it's good for you to know. I think it's going to help you on the exam when they talk about functional communication training. So I think if you know these four, just the basics, what they mean, it's going to help on the exam, but it's going to make you a good RBT, okay? Because you're going to work on these four all the time. So let's go over them. Patrice is in the library. He leans over and says, "Can you turn your music down?" What did Patrice do? Well, he made a request. He asked his neighbor, "Can you turn your music down?" He made a request, right? What type of verbal behavior is that? Is that a tact? A tact is a label. When you label something, you tact something. When we do tact training, we're doing labeling training. So you drive by a cow, you say cow. You drive by a bridge, you say bridge. You're labeling. Patrice isn't labeling anything. What about a mand? A mand is a request. You make a request, right? You make a request without any sort of verbal SD. This is what Patrice did. The music was loud. Leaned over. He manded to his neighbor to turn the music down. This is a mand. Okay? A mand is a request. It's the first verbal operant we develop as humans. You're going to be doing mand training all the time. Echoics. Echoics are simply the repeating of the verbal behavior by the learner. So this is when someone or with autism or anybody really repeats what you say. So if you tell someone to touch blue and the listener says touch blue, that's an echoic. They're echoing what you're saying. That's echolalia, right? And then intraverbal. Intraverbal is a conversation, right? It's a response. So I say, "What's your name?" You say Timmy. I say, "What's your favorite color?" You say blue. That's an intraverbal. Okay. So this is a mand. Again, I include these because I think knowing them helps you on your exam, and it's going to make you a better RBT. So if you're just the least familiar with these four terms and their basic definitions, you'll be fine. Okay, that's all you need to know. A mand is a request. Patrice requested for the person to turn their music down. You want Jeff to respond to his name when called, but not when you call the names of other children. Of the following, what would be the best way to teach Jeff this skill? So what are we trying to teach? We're trying to teach Jeff discrimination, right? He responds too often or not enough, okay? We only want him to respond when his name is called, not when you call out names of other children. How do we teach discrimination? We teach discrimination through differential reinforcement. What is differential reinforcement? It's reinforcing one behavior and putting other behaviors on extinction. So to teach Jeff this skill, we want to use some version of differential reinforcement. Okay, so let's find that. A, reinforce Jeff anytime he responds at all. This would be okay if we're just trying to strengthen Jeff's responding behavior. How you'll typically go about many skills is you reinforce every time it happens, no matter what, and then you need to shape it, right, to occur only when necessary, right? And we're at that point. Jeff responds, he just responds too often. So reinforcing anytime he responds is not going to help Jeff with discrimination. So A is out. Reinforce Jeff when he responds to his name, but not when he responds to other names. Sounds pretty good, right? When you call out Jeff, he receives reinforcement. When he responds to other names, he doesn't. This sounds like differential reinforcement. Differential reinforcement teaches discrimination. B looks pretty good. Let's look at the rest of our answer choices. C, punish Jeff unless he responds to his name. Okay, no, we don't need to include a punishment procedure just yet, right? This seems like a simple reinforcement, differential reinforcement procedure would fix it. Punishment, of course, is our last option, only when necessary. So this would not be the best way, okay, to teach Jeff to discriminate. And then finally, reinforce Jeff for not responding to other names. Remember, we're targeting a behavior for increase, okay? Reinforcing Jeff for not responding to other names doesn't help us respond to his name, okay? That's important. That's why B is better, because B reinforces Jeff for engaging in the correct behavior, okay, the target behavior, D reinforces Jeff for not engaging in the wrong behavior. Okay, understand that distinction. B, we're reinforcing our target behavior, what we want to see. D, we're reinforcing Jeff for not engaging in the behavior we don't. Okay, we want to increase that target behavior. Okay, so B is our best answer. A differential reinforcement procedure where Jeff receives reinforcement for responding to his name, but not when he responds to other names. Really understand why this one is correct and why the other ones aren't as good. Okay, it's going to give you a good understanding of discrimination and differential reinforcement. All right, the best definition for a biting behavior would be any instance of the client what? Okay, so observable and measurable behavior definition here. Remember, our behavior definitions are important because we want to be able to quickly identify exactly what we're looking for. We want other people to know what we're looking for. We want it to be consistent, and that starts with a good behavior definition. Behavior definition should be as complete as possible, as descriptive as possible, okay? So we never are going to mistake when that behavior occurs. So let's find the best definition for biting. A, biting a staff member or peer. Does that really define biting? No, that's just it's the same thing, right? Biting behavior is biting, doesn't tell us anything, okay? A is out. B, opening and closing his mouth on another person hard enough to leave a product. It's pretty good, right? You would never mistake this, right? You would observe the client if they open and close their mouth hard enough to leave some sort of product behind, it's a bite. B is a pretty good definition. Can we do better? C, placing their teeth on another person's skin. Well, this is kind of tough, right? What if they give someone else a kiss and their teeth touch the skin? Do we count that as a bite? You have to be careful with definitions that they can't be misconstrued, okay, for something different. You don't want any sort of mix-up. You want it as clear as possible. B is better than C because you could potentially confuse C for something else. And then D, harming another person with their mouth. Again, they might have multiple ways. You don't know, okay? Harming another person with their mouth is pretty vague when you compare it to opening, closing his mouth on another person hard enough to leave a product, okay? B might not be the most descriptive definition, but it's better, okay, than C or D. We need the best answer for each of our questions. B, okay, is the best choice we're given. Therefore, B is our answer. Finally, your client is on an FR3 schedule. She must earn 5 tokens before earning her break. The target behavior is sitting in her chair and responding within 5 seconds of being asked a question. How many times will your client need to respond in order to earn all 5 tokens? All right, so gather yourself, understand what they're asking. We need to know how many responses are required to earn all 5 tokens, okay? So the target behavior is irrelevant here, right? We're just looking at the responding. What is our schedule? Our schedule is FR3. What does FR3 mean? FR3 is a fixed ratio 3, meaning 3 responses correct are required before you receive reinforcement. So to get 1 token, you must respond correctly 3 times. Therefore, to earn 5 tokens, how many responses do we need? Well, if 1 token is 3 responses, 2 token is 6, 3 token is 9, 4 token is 12, 5 token, 15. Your client needs to respond 15 times in order to earn all 5 tokens. Remember, once for an FR3, once they hit that 3rd response, the schedule resets. They need to respond another 3 times, okay? So in order to answer a question like this, you need to identify how many tokens they're earning, and then the schedule, and simply figure out how many responses is it going to take to get to that 5 token mark. Okay, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe if you did, and check out all of our study materials at rbtexamreview.com. Any questions, please email me or leave a comment below. I'm happy to help. Other than that, I'll be back Wednesday with more practice questions. Keep working hard, keep studying hard, and I'll see you soon.